resource-based economy. Today, overpopulation, energy and water shortages, pollution, disease, economic disaster, conflicts, and ecological catastrophe are reaching dangerous levels. Our species is under existential threat. People experience the same threats wherever they are. Our current system does not provide equal opportunity for everyone. It does not care about our habitat and seems intent on its destruction. Its main driving force is profit. This profit incentive has been ravaging our world for the profit of international bankers. The economy of industrially developed countries exists on credit, disregarding the enormous burden on the resource capacity of our planet. Protects the interests of transnational corporations and not the interests of people. One of its pillars is the mass consumption of the consumer credit system, which received the green light from US President Ronald Reagan. In 2008, the financial and economic crisis was a result of this system. The monetary system has become a destructive model for our socio-economic needs. Money is no longer a means to an end, it has become an end in itself. It motivates us for the wrong reasons and blinds us to the folly of what we do. It paralyzes the will and does not motivate us towards social and cultural reform. After World War II, the US government was greatly concerned about the development of the national economy, because the military industry no longer required the same amount of labor and the soldiers needed employment as they came back from the front. In 1953, Arthur Burns, the head of the Council on Economy for President Eisenhower, said, "The ultimate goal of the US economy is to produce more consumer goods." In 1955, the economist and analyst Victor Lebow proposed a model for increasing consumption in the Journal for Retailing. He stated, "Our productive economy demands that we make consumption a way of life, that we convert the buying and use of goods into rituals, that we seek spiritual satisfaction for our ego in consumption. We need to consume things, burn them, replace and abandon them at an ever-increasing rate." The concept gained popularity for two reasons: planned obsolescence and forced obsolescence. In magazines on industrial design of the 1950s, the planned obsolescence scheme was discussed in detail, and openly discussed at that. Planned obsolescence has a technical and technological nature, and forced obsolescence was dominated by fashion and popular culture. We are now faced with the results of our contradiction, the increasing needs on the planet and our inability to provide for those needs without destroying the planet. In the 1970s, our consumption began to exceed the planet's ability to regenerate its resources. Environmentalists believe that it now requires the Earth 1.5 years of reproduction to cover what humankind uses in 1 year. This, along with the population growth and the diminishing food and water supply, puts our life and our planet directly in front of a global disaster and a socio-economic disaster. The socio-economic situation is as if you were in an airplane midway across the Atlantic Ocean and you ran out of fuel. As it stands today, only the financial elite have the parachutes. We are proposing a parachute, and that is to change the world together. CWT is a socio-economic model where the rights of any person are not just words on paper, but an exercise in reality. We present a vision of the future from a perspective that utilizes all relevant knowledge and uses technology in a way that creates a sustainable global civilization. We believe that a new development pathway for humanity should be implemented. We call for a goal-oriented approach to reconstruct the social fabric of societies in which the timeless problems of wars, poverty, famine, debt, environmental damage and suffering, apart from being soluble, should be considered totally inadmissible. Resource-based economies is a whole-factor socio-economic system in which all goods and services are available without the use of money, credit, barter, or any other system of debt or servitude. All resources become the common heritage of all of the inhabitants, not just a select few. Redirecting technological development and managerial philosophy will greatly improve efficiency in our economy. The term resource-based economy is widespread due to its popularization by Jacques Fresco in the framework of the Venus Project. In his books, Jacques Fresco says, Without technology, we could eliminate most of our social problems. Is modern technology incapable of producing the required amount of food, clothing, shelter, and other material benefits for everyone if we use them wisely? What prevents us from achieving this? Technology rushes forward, but our society is still firmly holding on to the concepts and techniques invented many centuries ago. What he said is obviously true. We have advanced technology and use it as a means of destruction, rather than making it possible to provide free access to food, clothing, housing, education, and healthcare to all inhabitants of the planet. We can solve our energy crisis and make a fundamental shift towards conservation and alternative energy. We can also redirect its use to create favorable conditions for a prosperous and effective new social model that uses a different means of exchange, one that widens its reach and touches everyone rather than a few. We can only achieve this if we remove the noose of the current monetary system from around the modern society's neck. The blind consumption of today will lead humanity to an end. This became clear in the 1970s on the back end of the energy and economic crisis. In the 1980s, we began talking openly about a new world model whose main objectives were as follows: the rejection of any kind of pseudo-needs, starting with weapons, harmful drugs, including alcohol and nicotine, luxury items, and the over-replication of similar products. A fundamental rejection of the production of unsustainable products that hurt the environment. A new policy for de-urbanization of congested cities. The construction of new housing systems to balance the inequality between have and have-nots. To distribute gardening and farming facilities to more people so we can have a healthier contribution to the food supply and transition to a higher quality of life. To eliminate the use of harmful chemicals in agriculture and nurture the natural ecosystem to better protect plants and animals. To remove harmful chemicals from our cleaning technology. Optimizing our energy consumption and expenditure by increasing the proportion of clean energy sources, namely solar, wind, hydro, and geothermal, along with new sources. Optimizing the world mass balance by increasing the percentage of recycled materials against the total consumption and production of sustainable products. Greater involvement of people in solving social problems across the globe. The reformation of social consciousness in 7 key areas: world affairs, science, art, morality, law, psychology, and religion. Refocus efforts to develop a culture of health, natural living, and a balanced development of the human personality. More time for parents to be directly involved in the education of children through a leisure structure rather than formal and substandard education. To make family and community more desired and serve to better educate the youth. This thesis was developed in the book by the English economist Ernst Schumacher, titled Small is Beautiful, a study of economics as if people mattered. The same thesis can be found also in the books by Jay Forrester, titled World Dynamics, Donella Meadows' The Limits to Growth. Among other notable examples are Michael Masaryk and Edward Pestel's Mankind at the Turning Point, and John Tinbergen's Revision of the International Order. The authors urge to combine the inheritance received by man, technique, with irreplaceable dowry, natural resources. That is the combination of economy and ecology. They also prove that wealth, which is standard of living, is one of the conditions of welfare, that is, quality of life. But these things are not equal. While the profit incentive is still the priority, the same problems will repeat again and again. What tasks has the CWT movement set itself to? Here is a highlight of the main directions. The transition from a monetary-based economy to a resource-based economy. Optimization and improvement of the global financial system. Elimination of all kinds of hatred and their extreme manifestations. Removing the social inequity between people. Improving the level of education and awareness about the current world crisis. Encouraging creative thinking and igniting the creative principle in humankind. a sharing economy that promotes the interchange and promotion of new technologies for the benefit of all peoples, the development and use of clean and renewable energy sources, promotion of economic projects that contribute to the restoration of the environment and the rational use of resources. The economy, and specifically the monetary system, should be reformed as quickly as possible, but also steadily and progressively. An example of this would be the elimination of the banking system of fractional reserve and interest rates. The purpose of the new social model is to activate new incentives, to transition to a resource-based economy by eliminating the conditions that give rise to greed, envy, and the hyper-competitive environment that we live in. New incentives are designed to encourage people toward fulfillment of the self and the other through creativity and the motivation for collective well-being. The measure of success will be the realization of these aspirations through their results, leading to longer and healthier lives that are more rich and fulfilling. If we do care about the future of humanity and our environment, we must change the social and economic processes which are responsible for the majority of our problems. Given a fair and reasonable application of science and technology, the people of Earth will be able to determine the course of future development and protect the environment. Our problems today are global and massive in their scale and impact. They cannot be solved single-handedly. To implement these plans, it is vital to combine efforts in promoting the interests of ordinary people. Only consolidated efforts will enable us to correct the mistakes of the past and provide a healthy and productive environment for our children and future generations. If we unite, we can do a lot together. We can change the world. The world as a cinema. For better understanding of the distribution of resources in the world, I suggest considering the model of our society in the form of a cinema. Imagine a large cinema for 7 billion seats, according to the number of the population. One seat is a part of our planet's resources for normal existence of one person. We already consider our world rich and self-sufficient. We have the technology and resources to meet the needs of all people living on the earth. We just need to put the priority not on the profit and wealth, but on just satisfaction of these needs. Making the rational use of resources, its optimization and implementation of intelligent technologies will make it possible to build a completely different world. So we imagine that our world is a cinema, in which each person takes his seat where he is guaranteed to get conditional benefits package. This guaranteed social package includes the ability to implement their creative talents, live in decent conditions in a house or apartment, free education and medical services, healthy food, clean water, and comfortable rest. And what comes out in reality? There is a saying that everyone is equal, but some are more equal than others. And these more equal than others believe that they have a right to hold not one, but several seats in the cinema. We are imposed the values in the form of money, and while chasing after them, each is trying to get as much seats as possible. For instance, if you're a member of parliament, it means that you have the right for 10 seats. If an oligarch, 1,000 seats. It turns out that one person gets 1,000 times more resources than he can neither absorb nor digest, and the other, instead of chairs, huddles on the steps in the aisle. One lives in a luxurious palace, fattens and overeats, while the others, whom he had kicked off their chairs, are forced to vegetate in slums. Unfortunately, imposed on us is the false system of values that most people don't even recognize with any surprise or resistance. People are used to living like that. They are resigned to inequality. However, with the correct and rational use of resources, we can achieve results when everyone on Earth will live in conditions above the current average. Each will take his convenient and comfortable seat. But for this, you need to make an effort not to be indifferent and apathetic. By joining the ranks of the Change the World together, everyone will take the first step to reforming the global system of values. The financial system of the 21st century. We have already outlined the main issues humanity is facing, as well as the future that we can achieve if we unite our forces. What we have to understand, however, is that it is not coming overnight. no matter how much we want it to. It takes time and collective effort to prepare the new era. We cannot openly declare war against the established system. It is unproductive at best and harmful to the movement at worst. Besides, as long as the money bags control the law, it would be foolish to believe in justice. The courts they control will rule against us. After all, our actions are aimed at undermining their resource and power monopoly. But we can't sit back and watch as our freedom is taken away, or until their system falls apart on its own. So what can we do? We need to take alternative steps that help us move closer to our goals, yet comply with the law. What holds the current system in place and gives it its power? The petrodollar and oil. Oil is a natural resource, but it's the filthy dollar that is man-made. The dollar is what we need to focus on above everything else. The banks and their money. Banks are trying to convince us that they have our best interest in mind through advertisements and slogans every day. We are here for you 24/7, they say. Your money is safe with our bank. Enjoy life, we'll take care of the rest, they say. But we all know the truth. These banks couldn't care less about the welfare and convenience of their customers. They exist to profit their owners. This is the only goal of every bank in the world, and the surefire path to this end is to make their customers dependent on their services. Don't be fooled by the bank's intentions. It is not created for you. It needs you for the success of its owners. Clients exist for the banks, not the other way around. It is clients who make the existence of a bank possible. It does this by imposing commission charges and interest on credit card loans, annual payments, delivery payments, and payments on top of payments. It is constantly innovating to find new ways to make money from the client, whatever its advertisements may say. The world banking system has become so powerful, it created lobby to influence the political system. Almost all developed countries are subject to the banking lobby. It is not surprising to see it dictate cabinet picks, political party lines, and even influence presidential elections. Why? Banks own a lot of money. A lot of money means a lot of power, real power. The banking lobby is closely connected with the media, and oftentimes bankers are part owners of the largest media conglomerates. This control of the media allows them to manufacture consent and control public opinion. This kind of power becomes especially useful during election time. State power and the banks go together. Since banks have the money and the power, it is only natural they would want to be the only creators of money and the only official issuers of currency. On paper, it is the government who is responsible for the creation of money. However, as you may have realized by now, the state is not something made by the people and for the people, but a well-oiled machine designed to serve those really in power. That is why money is really made on the level of commercial banks. The money supply is subject to the will of its issuer. Money is a product of mutual trust. Its purchasing power is only valid as long as the public contract that people agree upon exists. Money has been evolving throughout the ages. Money from a few hundred years ago is merely a collector's item. You cannot go into a shop in Germany today and expect to buy products with the Deutsche Marks from the days of Hitler. Money is not a heavenly creation or something we find in our DNA. Money is a social convention. The banks have decreed that money is to be created from the top of the ladder and handed down to the state, appointed by the banking lobby to use. Any other way is considered to be treasonous to the very foundation of our society. So anyone who attempts to develop an alternative is either locked up or shot on the spot. Criticizing this system also increases the risk of sudden, unexpected heart attacks and even suicide. Leave the creation of money to the banks, period. Money issued by the banks continuously decrease in value, and it's very noticeable. Inflation, as any economist worth their salt will tell you, is vital for a healthy economy. Economists chant this passage as if they were in a cult. The opposite is true, however. Inflation is an artificial, unhealthy, and vile phenomenon, and the issuer of money is the only one who benefits from it. The issuer gives you money, but it turns out there's never enough, so you need more. Even if your salary is rising, the rate of inflation is usually 2 steps ahead. Inflation combined with usurious interest rates allows the bankers to sit back and enjoy the revenue with a smile on their faces. Issuing more money is a matter of pressing a few buttons. For you, it's earned through everyday labor. Money in itself doesn't represent goods and services. Excessive demand for different commodities and services creates bubbles. Futures, options, shares, oil, gold, anything to dump the money surplus into. So much money has been released into the system that we could buy everything on our planet several times over, including the population. To avert the attention of the general public from this knowledge, they cook up and present them with a crisis after crisis, all of them manufactured just to keep the illusion. The paper bills from under the printing press of the Fed, we are told, are valuable. We are told to buy goods, pay for services, and transact with each other using these paper bills. All the cooperation in the world is facilitated through this system. These pieces of paper will only have power for as long as we continue accepting their value and using them as money in our daily life. Unbridled emission of these colorful pieces of paper will cause the system to collapse if we stop using the dollar as a means of payment. If we stop using their money in our daily lives, the lifeblood of these banks will dry out. Once that happens, the Fed money will drop in value by 1,000 times. Since they're not backed by anything, their worth will be reduced to the paper and ink that is printed on it. Blockchain challenges fiat currencies. If you think about it, there isn't any real reason why anyone cannot come up with their own form of money and enter it into use with agreement of others. Many companies and websites use loyalty systems with points and bonuses that users can exchange for goods and services. Of course, these currencies only work within the system they were created in, and their worth outside of it is near zero. If you manage to take your currency to a greater level of prominence, and people begin using it as currency, you will be prosecuted and locked away in prison for a long, long time. The charges? It's rarely for financial crimes or anything of that sort. Sexual assault of a minor works best in these cases. This happened to the founder of the electronic payment service provider Liberty Reserve. He created a currency and didn't pay intermediaries for the permission to emit this money, as he found hundreds of thousands of willing participants. In May of 2013, his emission center was destroyed by US authorities, even though the currency posed no threat to US interests. This example serves as the lesson to everybody, keeping many from creating their own currencies. That is why the idea of private money came alive again in the digital age. The Internet is a network in the most proper sense of the word. The Internet connects hundreds of millions of computers and people at the same time. The speed of data transfer between the continents via fiber optic cables is near instantaneous. The Internet is the perfect platform for creating money, and that's indeed what people are doing. This is the first time when money has become ownerless. There are no more central emission centers that could be destroyed. There are no owners, directors, or vulnerable data centers. There is simply no target to attack. E-money challenged the traditional centralized emission systems, i.e. classic banks. A peer-to-peer network, decentralized, and subject only to the laws of true supply and demand, not some authorities, is available to all, on equal footing. Herman Gref, The CEO and chairman of the executive board of Sberbank of Russia has noted that virtual global currencies such as Bitcoin require global regulation. He says, quote, "It's impossible to stop the world once it has started in this direction." End quote. His viewpoint is shared by other bankers. They don't like this direction. They don't want to see a network like Bitcoin succeed, and for there not to be a central regulation emission center for virtual currency. Bitcoin cannot be destroyed technically, so bankers try and deface it through the media and undermine its credibility. We have two choices at this point: to remain the indifferent observers or become active participants in the blockchain revolution. Cryptocurrency and the future financial system of a new society. Today, we already have a safe and fair alternative to the current monetary system. It is cryptocurrency. It's impossible to counterfeit, and it's immune to inflation as only a limited amount of coins is issued. It can provide complete anonymity of transactions. The role of e-currency in the near future cannot be overemphasized. Cryptocurrency is a new financial phenomenon. Many experts and economists openly admit that virtual currency may become the basis of a new financial system and the main means of payment in the future. According to the co-founder of cryptocurrency, Mark Hearn, this new financial model is a stateless system built by the people for the people, free of central regulation and without any financial mediators. There are no banks or bankers in this system. People control the exchange of money themselves. Among cryptocurrency pioneers were those who felt at home on the internet. These people and companies buy and sell goods and services online. The number of cryptocurrency users over the years has been increasing at an unprecedented rate, with no end in sight. You can already use cryptocurrency today to pay for a beer in a Berlin bar, order a pizza online in Amsterdam, or pay for a hotel in Moscow. You can pay for a taxi or book an airline ticket in Edinburgh, or pay for a visit to the dentist in Tokyo, or cover university tuition in Paris. You can even pay for a trip to space with Virgin Galactic. Anything can be paid for using this digital cash, even a drink at a street lemonade stand. Anyone with a smartphone can accept payment in cryptocurrency without a financial intermediary. However, the world has split into two camps. One camp believes that it is the future of money, and the other is adamant about the criminal nature of the technology, claiming it's only good for money laundering and financing terrorist groups. Nations with strong currencies don't have much problem with cryptocurrencies, while developing nations plagued by financial instability are trying to shield themselves from it. Today, there are over 2,000 virtual currencies such as Ethereum, Ripple, Litecoin, Lisk, and Dash, among other ones. Bitcoin still remains the most popular one. Its history starts in 2009. At first, Bitcoin was only known by a small circle within the tech community, and it was unclear whether or not it will reach wider adoption. Its value was very low at that point. Bitcoin's big break came when it became featured on an exchange capable of being turned in for real money. It was an ideal means for anonymous transactions, and it found popularity on underground and black marketplaces. This spiked the public interest in cryptocurrency, and the value of Bitcoin skyrocketed. Traders helped too, and now Bitcoin is world famous. It is Bitcoin that is the most popular and well-known cryptocurrency today, with a market capitalization of around $100 billion. It can be exchanged in ATMs for national currencies in a number of countries. Outlets and websites accept Bitcoin as payment for goods and services. How did all that came to be? The first and most important advantage is that the amount of currency issued in the system is decided from the outset. It is not a printable currency, and it cannot be created out of thin air. The process of creation is transparent and in full view of all the participants. The second advantage is that the system works without intermediaries. The traditional financial system is built to rely on middlemen. Banks and government authorities are there to confirm transactions. This takes time and money in the form of commission fees. Cryptocurrencies allow ditching all these intermediaries and make quick transactions in a matter of seconds. Peer-to-peer loans in the US have been around for over 10 years now, and this market is worth more than $80 billion. Consumer loans used to be given out exclusively by commercial banks, but with the advent of cryptocurrencies, we can connect borrowers and lenders directly, bypassing middlemen and cash entirely. Herman Gref, the head of one of Russia's biggest banks, said, quote, "This is a revolution in the world of financing, and if traditional banks fail to prepare for this revolution, then the revolution will take over these traditional banks." End quote. We can take this further. Imagine the possibilities if peer-to-peer lending unites ordinary lenders into credit unions in order to finance different economic projects of their choosing. This opens the door for profit sharing more equitably and can be complemented with fundraising. Blockchain technology can make this a reality. Blockchain, humanity, and the bankers. 3 is a crowd. There is no question that the future belongs to cryptocurrency and blockchain technology. It is easier, safer, borderless, and does not belong to the global bankers. It doesn't belong to them yet. However, the R3 consortium, which is composed of 42 banks from around the world, including Barclays, Bank of America, Credit Suisse, JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, Santander, and others, has already begun working on introducing blockchain technology, that is, distributed ledger without encryption, to the banking system. Banks are afraid of blockchain. A new report from PricewaterhouseCoopers says the globalists see as much as 33% of business taken away from the legacy banking system in the near future. The report says, quote, "In our view, blockchain may result in a radically different competitive future in the financial services industry, where current profit pools are disrupted and redistributed towards the owners of new, highly efficient blockchain platforms." End quote. And now, a parable about 3 sons and a bundle of sticks. Once upon a time, an old man had 3 sons. The 3 sons quarreled all the time. The old man wanted his sons to live in harmony with each other after his death. Months passed by, and the old man fell sick, so he decided to teach them a practical lesson. The old man called his sons and told them to break a bundle of sticks. The oldest son tried his best, but couldn't do it. The rest of his sons did the same and failed. The old man then gave a bundle of 10 sticks to each of them and asked them to break each stick into pieces. They broke the sticks into pieces in minutes. And again, they started to quarrel among themselves as to who was first. The old man said, "Dear sons, see, you could easily break the single sticks into pieces, but you were not able to break the bundle. So, if you stay united, nobody can do any harm to you. If you quarrel every time with your brothers, anyone can easily defeat you." The moral of this parable is that small groups can defeat large groups of enemies if they are united. As long as these enemies are quarreling, unity wins. There are over 40 million Bitcoin users today. Together with users of other cryptocurrencies, this number will easily exceed 100 million. In the near future, this number will exponentially increase as more people begin to join the movement against the current financial system and begin to transform the economy into a resource-based economy. We need to unite. That's what the financial elite and the bankers fear the most. We need to stop competing and arguing over personal gain. They have already united 42 banks against this movement, so there is little time to waste, lest the blockchain technology becomes just another tool that serves the few rather than the society at large. After understanding the injustice of the current financial, economic, and global management systems, we invite everybody who wishes to change the world to unite in a single international movement. Today, each of us has an opportunity to take part in making history and building the future of our children and grandchildren. The objective of the first stage is to create the biggest international movement which will involve over 200 million people, the CWT movement. United, we can accomplish many great things. Together, we can change the world. Lenin is said to have declared that the best way to destroy the capitalist system was to debauch the currency. Lenin was certainly right. There is no subtler, no surer means of overturning the existing basis of society than to debauch the currency. John Maynard Keynes. PRISM, Advanced Cryptocurrency. Mahatma Gandhi once said, "Earth provides enough to satisfy every man's needs, but not every man's greed." Indeed, even 60 years after the death of this great philosopher and politician, few things have changed in the world. The market economy is in gridlock as it has exhausted itself. Now millions of people are able to understand this. The economy should have a goal, such as the development of humanity and society, to which the economy should be a servant. However, the market is not capable of goal setting. The best that it can do is to self-organize in order to extract maximum profits. But this, in the end, is a destructive goal. In order to achieve profit, mankind does not develop, but on the contrary, degenerates. All the vices of mankind, whose representatives are ready to unleash wars and organize revolutions because of the colored pieces of fiat paper, are manifested on this path this way. We don't need this. Profitability is entirely for the sake of control over resources, the usage of which endeavors toward maximum profits. Thus, you can get it only if you are a monopolist, or you manage to minimize the cost of raw materials and wages, considering them as slaves to your system. If such an approach is acceptable at the state level, conditions in business shouldn't perplex us. The producers are not interested in making their goods tasty or useful. It is not profitable for the doctor to heal the patient, while the automakers haven't produced really reliable cars for a long time. Humanity does not use the resources of the planet rationally at all. Instead, they misallocate them. Instead of switching to renewable energy, we continue to burn millions of tons of oil and gas, pushing ourselves to the brink of the abyss, which is already too close. Millions of people do despised or absolutely useless work, for which they are nonetheless paid. Should they stop being paid? No. Otherwise, the sharing economy will be in the deepest crisis. Although it will be quite possible to do without this artificial employment by introducing the so-called basic universal income, which, by the way, is already discussed in Switzerland and Sweden. Do not think that people will start to go crazy from their idleness. You can always develop yourself as well as educate your children and grandchildren. In the end, people will have time for creativity and socially significant deeds. Moreover, this goal is achievable. We have the power to create a completely different economy in which people will not need a mediator in the form of money between their desires and their embodiment. How can we do it? You would be surprised, but the recipe is quite simple. It is enough to unite several 100,000 people in order to promote a new, worldwide, decentralized financial system in competition with the existing one, so that the previous one will crack at the seams. The ideology of CWT is the core around which this consolidation is to occur, while to date the new cryptocurrency PRISM is the only tool which can help achieve this goal. The IMF Pyramid. As mentioned above, cash flows can be represented in the form of a classic pyramid. It starts at the very top. Fiat money is printed by the Federal Reserve and the central banks, and then redistributed between the lower levels of the structure. The problem is that the money becomes more expensive at each subsequent level. The money arrives at the IMF from a limited number of large banks that either give it to people in the form of loans or pay for labor costs. Wage work or a loan is the main means of obtaining money from the people at the bottom of the pyramid. In other words, they exchange their present time, work, or their future time, loan, for money. The reason the situation is a cynical one is that time is a limited resource that people can only exchange until it runs out, while colored pieces of paper can be printed in unlimited amount for as long as you like. What the banks are doing with ordinary people, the IMF is doing with whole countries. Central banks of 189 IMF member states manage the issue of national currencies via the currency board regime. This is necessary because any country which is an IMF member is obliged to ensure a one-stage exchange of the entire volume of its national currency to dollars and pounds from its own gold and currency reserves. At all times, this rule must be followed. Without this, they cannot be accepted members of the IMF. As a result, there is not as much money in the economy of these countries as is necessary for normal operation, but rather there are enough dollars in the member central bank's vault. The more dollars were earned by selling oil and gas, the more can be printed in your own national currency. Thus, the entire economy of these countries is artificially held in direct dependence on the export of natural resources, goods, and services. As a shining example, we can consider the interrelationships of the main institutions of the economy of Russia, which incidentally are identical for all 189 IMF member countries. Functions and powers provided for by the Constitution of the Russian Federation and the federal law on the Central Bank of the Russian Federation, which is Bank of Russia, are as follows. The Bank of Russia exists independently of federal bodies of state power, state authorities of the subjects of the Russian Federation, and local self-government bodies. The independence of the status of the Bank of Russia is reflected in Article 75 of the Constitution of the Russian Federation, as well as in Articles 1 and 2 of the Federal Law on the Central Bank of the Russian Federation, Bank of Russia. The central bank is a legal entity which is independent of the state. Only the Central Bank of the Russian Federation has an exclusive right to issue cash and organize cash circulation. Without the permission of the Bank of Russia, the state cannot dispose of property, much less the country's gold and currency reserves. The state is not responsible for the obligations of the Bank of Russia, while the Bank of Russia is responsible for the obligations of the state. The relationship of currencies is regulated by the Central Bank of the Russian Federation, irrespective of the government of the Russian Federation. The Bank of Russia has the right to apply for the protection of its interests in international courts, courts of foreign states, as well as arbitration courts. The Bank of Russia in the financial sphere can issue regulations and give instructions on what to do, both to government authorities and to legal and physical bodies. Thus, everyone must unquestionably follow them. The Bank of Russia has no right to grant loans to the government of the Russian Federation, but it can lend to economies of other countries. It is almost impossible to dismiss the chairman of the Bank of Russia until his term has expired, even if he does his job or simply refuses to comply with government orders. The IMF is the only organization whose instructions the central bank must follow. In addition to the above mentioned, the IMF solves an important issue when driving the countries into the pyramid of debts in such a way that the country will never get out of it and relinquish its state sovereignty. Just imagine the situation when the bank that issued you a loan to extend the term of the loan sets a condition that your son does not go to college but to vocational school. Each of the next conditions can be even tougher and even more cynical, up to the compulsory limitation of the population of countries under the cover of various medical programs. Of course, this doesn't help anyone in the world. Attempts to break or reformat the existing system are made regularly, but because of their disparity, they are each time broken against the defensive bastions of the world's financial elites, which very jealously guard their conquered positions. 10 years ago, an attempt was made, which initially had every chance to succeed. Of course, we're talking about the appearance of cryptocurrencies, which violated the monopoly of the Federal Reserve and the central banks for control of the money issue. As everyone knows, Bitcoin was the pioneer, owing to a person enveloped in a shroud of mystery, Satoshi Nakamoto. To date, in general, there are about 2,000 cryptocurrencies in the world. Some of them are very similar to the pioneer cryptocurrency. Others are struggling to differentiate themselves from it. Anyway, it would be a very big mistake to judge any of them. Unfortunately, even those who consider themselves experts in this field do not see any fundamental differences between the currently existing coins. For many of them, the words cryptocurrency and Bitcoin are generally synonymous. It's important to understand that any cryptocurrency is, first of all, a blockchain technology, that is, mathematics, which in turn can be used for anything. As far as a nuclear bomb differs from a nuclear power plant, cryptocurrencies can conceptually differ from each other. The source code of cryptocurrency is a rule, while the rules are written by people, laying down any goals, tasks, and ideology in them. I am convinced that these rules should contribute to the development of man and society, but unfortunately, this is not what everyone thinks, considering the main goal of any endeavor is to maximize profit. During the period since the appearance of fiat money, and to date, the most profitable business is seigniorage. And in order to understand the essence of this process, you need to understand the terminology. Fiat money, from Latin fiat, a decree, so let it be instruction. We see it from the name that this kind of money is produced by those who take responsibility for ensuring their nominal value. Simply speaking, the value of fiat money is supported by the belief of people that they will be able to exchange money for something valuable. Only the faith in green sheets of paper determines their value relative to the orange sheets of paper. Having understood this fact, one can draw a simple conclusion. Any equivalent in the form of paper, metal coins, or electronic records has value only if the established systems of upbringing and education instill in the mind of each person that these special sheets of paper have the mystical property of converting to goods and services. In this sense, any existing cryptocurrency is no worse and no better than traditional money, since in the first and in the second case, a lot of things depends on people's simple trust. The foundation of the US dollar's dominance in the world financial system is no better. Seigniorage, a French word that means income derived from the issue of money and assigned by the issuer on the right of ownership. When money is made from a material that has value below the value of the bills being produced. Cryptocurrency is a kind of digital currency, the issue and control of which are based on cryptographic methods. The operation of such systems is based on blockchain technology. Information about the transactions of all users is not encrypted and is available in clear text. A key feature of the cryptocurrency is the possibility of issuing new money and the absence of any internal or external administrator. Therefore, banks, tax, judicial, and other public or private bodies cannot influence the transactions of any participants in the payment system. The transfer of cryptocurrency is irreversible, as no one can cancel, block, or dispute transactions. Considering these simple terms, one can ask the question: how will life on the planet change if the business of producing money is transferred from private structures that have concentrated control over education and the media to everyone according to birthright? How will the world financial pyramid that has been in creation for centuries remain intact if the right to issue banknotes turns out to be not only for the small omnipotent upper tier of financial tycoons who usurped power over the world, but also among ordinary people? What will happen if the Federal Reserve's monopoly on printing dollars and pounds falls down, and there will be their own small printing machine in the pocket of any inhabitant of the earth, fully providing their basic needs? This will revolutionize the entire system, while PRISM will provide this coup. Cryptocurrency Revolution. The end of the 2020s is rightfully called the cryptocurrency revolution. But very few people understand what is hidden behind. Everyone is screaming about decentralization, Bitcoin, as well as the legalization of cryptocurrencies, but nobody can clearly explain what is hidden by these terms and where the current processes take place. Cryptocurrency has one amazing feature, which almost all people have overlooked, and which has not yet revealed its potential, but it can do this in the very near future. When this happens, the consequences will shake the whole world, as well as contain changes which will affect every aspect of social life. The true strength of cryptocurrency is the ability to create and distribute money without centralized power. Perhaps this will seem obvious, but I assure you that it is not true. The world financial system has been in the hands of private financial elites for more than 100 years. The blockchain technology could pull the power out of these hands. This would open the door to a new world economy, leaving the old world order with a deficit economy in the pages of history books. After all, money is also a commodity and it also fights for its buyers. Now, cryptocurrency has every chance to defeat fiat money. The genie broke out of the lamp, and we can see the greatest global financial experiment that can give a second life to both trade and the world economy by simply eliminating the fraudulent unlimited emission of currency from the rules of the game. But is the complete and unconditional surrender of today's monetary monopolists possible without any serious resistance? Is it possible to believe that people will give up everything that for centuries provided for their comfortable existence and gave unlimited power without any struggle? Did they at some point attempt to channel it in the right direction, and did this attempt succeed in realizing that they are not able to stop the cryptocurrency revolution? Looking at what is happening today with the world's most famous cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, the answers to these questions are far from obvious. Meanwhile, Satoshi Nakamoto's creation is surrounded by no fewer myths than the creator. Myth number 1. Bitcoin is eternal. Everything that is written in the blockchain is left in it forever. Indeed, each high-grade client of the network stores the entire history of all transactions. Therefore, its volume at the time of writing this book already amounts to more than 200 gigabytes of data. Thus, this is less than the volume of the hard drive of a budget laptop. But the more transactions in the Bitcoin network occur, the faster the amount of data grows. Most of it appeared in the last couple of years. The growth of the volume of the blockchain. Bitcoin was lucky, as the volume of the blockchain of its main competitor, Ethereum, grows exponentially, and at the time of writing this book, its volume amounts to more than 4 terabytes. So, according to the current realities, the eternity of the blockchain is limited to 10 years, as the growth in the capacity of hard disk drives is definitely not keeping up with the increase in the amount of data. So, according to the current realities, the eternity of the blockchain is limited to 10 years, as the growth in the capacity of hard disk drives is definitely not keeping up with the increase in the amount of data. But in addition to the fact that these arrays need to be stored, they must also be downloaded. Everyone who tried to use a full-fledged local wallet for any cryptocurrency was amazed to find that they cannot make and accept payments until all the specified amount is downloaded and verified. You'll be very lucky if everything goes through in just a couple of days. So, Bitcoin users divided a long time ago into enthusiasts who download the blockchain and ordinary people who use online wallets, trust the server, and who do not care how it works in general. Thus, the system is gradually centered and ceases to be decentralized. Myth number 2. Bitcoin is effective and scalable, therefore ordinary money will soon die out. If each node of the network produces the same work, then it is obvious that the bandwidth of the entire network is equal to the bandwidth of one node. And do you know what it is equal to? Bitcoin can process no more than 10 transactions per second for everyone. In addition, Bitcoin blockchain transactions are recorded only once every 10 minutes. And after the appearance of the record for reliability, it is acceptable to wait another 50 minutes because the records regularly spontaneously roll back. Now imagine that you want to buy bread for Bitcoin. Literally, it will take an hour of waiting in the store and the coveted but stale bread is in your hand. During this time, speculators on exchanges may drop or raise the rate of Bitcoin by a few percent, so it is not clear at what price you will get this bread in the end. Do not forget about the commission for the transaction, which can be unpleasantly large. In the whole scope of frameworks, this is ridiculous. When Bitcoin is used by a handful of people. For comparison, Visa processes thousands of operations per second, and if necessary, it will easily increase capacity because classical banking technologies are perfectly scalable. Myth number 3. Miners provide network security. You've probably heard about the miners and the giant mining farms that are built next to power plants. What are they doing? If shortly, they use electricity in the 24/7 mode with periodicity in 10 minutes, transform the blocks until they become beautiful and can be included in the block. As a reward for each new block, its creator receives 12.5 Bitcoin. At the end of June 2018, one Bitcoin cost about $7,000. By the way, the only way to issue Bitcoin is to be awarded for the creation of blocks. Thus, all new Bitcoin is created thanks to mining, which spends the same amount of electricity as an entire city with a population of 200,000 inhabitants. Add to this the insanely expensive equipment, which is suitable only for mining, and you will come to the obvious idea that people are unlikely to get rich on mining. At best, it will be possible to return the money invested in the equipment and make a small profit. However, it is not certain because the mining equipment is becoming obsolete very quickly, and it needs to be updated much more often than home computers. Sellers of mining equipment promise a payback period of 6 months, but they, as a rule, never make a correction for the growth of the computation complexity and, as a consequence, a drop in the extraction efficiency. In reality, no farm pays off in a year from inception unless, of course, it retains its capacity for work. From an economic point of view, the money spent on purchasing equipment for mining would be more appropriate spent on buying cryptocurrency. Calling things by their own names, the basic principle of mining, the so-called proof of work, is identical with the notion of burning the resources of mankind. This empty work and numerous cryptocurrencies working on POS technology perfectly illustrate this thesis. Everything operates without monstrous energy costs in purchasing mining farms. Blockchain optimists like to say that the miners are not useless. They ensure the stability and security of the Bitcoin network. This is true, but only partially, as in fact, the miners protect Bitcoin from other miners. If the number of miners was 1,000 times less and they burned 1,000 times less electricity than now, Bitcoin would have worked just as well. The speed of the appearance of new blocks as well as the number and speed of transactions would not have changed. In addition to the blockchain decisions, there is a risk of a 51% attack, the essence of which is that if someone controls more than half of all mining capacities, they can secretly write an alternative financial history in which they did not give anyone their money. Thus, an attacker gets the opportunity to spend their money several times. It turns out that Bitcoin has become a hostage of its own ideology. Superfluous miners cannot stop mining, because then probability that one of them will control more than half of the remaining capacity will sharply increase. While mining is profitable, the network is stable, but if the situation changes, for example due to the fact that the price of the electricity will rise or the financial reward for a new block will decrease again, the network may face massive double expenses. Myth number 4. Blockchain is decentralized and therefore unbreakable. You may think that since a block is stored on each node of the network, the government agencies cannot outlaw Bitcoin because it doesn't have a central server or anything to that effect. But this is a dangerous delusion. In fact, in reality, all independent miners are pulled into cartels. They have to unite because it is better to have a stable but small income than a huge one that comes around once every 1,000 years. Distribution of Bitcoin capacities by pools. As you can see in the diagram, there are only about 20 large pools, and 4 of them control more than 50% of the total capacity. So knocking on just 4 doors is enough to get access to 4 computers that control 50% of the Bitcoin network, making it possible to spend the same amount of Bitcoin more than once. Such an opportunity, as you may understand, will devalue Bitcoin for quite a while, and this task is quite feasible. Mining distribution by country. However, the most important threat is not this, but the fact that most pools, along with their computing power, are placed in one country, which simplifies the potential takeover of Bitcoin. Bitcoin, which had a decentralized model in the very beginning, every year becomes an increasingly centrist model in the hands of miners and market speculators. Nowadays, this scourge is a concern for absolutely all cryptocurrencies because all of them are conceptually very similar. They all have a common problem. Even if they are created with the intention of being decentralized, after they start to grow, they become centralized, similar to the way Bitcoin is. In order to generate a new coin, for example Bitcoin, you need to choose a pair of prime numbers thanks to which the block is generated, i.e. if you generated a new block in the blockchain, the Genesis block gives you a coin as a reward, sending it to your address. Almost all cryptocurrencies operate on this principle. In order to generate a new coin, it is necessary to maintain the network. Mining maintains the whole network. In fact, the miners do not engage in Bitcoin production. they just generate blocks in the blockchain and get Bitcoin as a reward. This concept leads to centralization. At the initial stage, there are a lot of miners, as mining is easy. It's easy to generate blocks as well as maintain the network, which is stable and well protected both in the POW and POS concepts. However, with the increasing complexity of POW networks, the miners have to constantly buy more powerful equipment in order to continue to be able to efficiently generate new blocks in the blockchain. As not so many people can afford it, the competition is reduced. The situation in the classic POS concept is not much better. Thus, you need to have coins to generate new blocks. The more coins you have, the more blocks you produce, and vice versa. The more blocks you produce, the more coins you receive. Respectively, you become stronger, therefore it gets harder to compete with you. If you don't sell your coins to anyone, then you become a key person in the whole network. Thus, all of the blockchains operate on this principle and are evolving from decentralized to centralized. The more power is needed for POW mining and POS coins, the closer these systems are to final centralization and capture. Thus, the decentralization of cryptocurrencies is an illusion. In fact, every cryptocurrency has an owner, while in most cases no one knows who the owners are. The thesis of centralizing Bitcoin is perfectly illustrated in the following data. 99% of all Bitcoin currently used is stored in 1% of wallets. Moreover, there are only 114 wallets in the world which store 10,000 Bitcoin or more. The total value of these wallets is about $20 billion. More than 1,000 Bitcoin is stored in a little more than 1,600 wallets. In addition, no more than 3% of the Bitcoin accounts around the world can boast of storing at least one Bitcoin in each. The remaining 97% are satisfied at best with tenths of this cryptocurrency. By the way, Satoshi Nakamoto's account is at the top of this pyramid, as it stores more than 1 million Bitcoin, which have never been transferred. Myth number 5. The anonymity and openness of the blockchain is good. The blockchain is open, as any user can track all transactions. However, there is no and cannot be any anonymity in the Bitcoin network. As an example, if an attacker requires a ransom for a hacked wallet, then everyone understands that the wallet belongs to a malevolent person. For the reason that anyone can track the transactions from this wallet, the hacker cannot simply take advantage of Bitcoin stored inside, because once his identity is revealed, he would be thrown in jail. Moreover, almost all exchanges require passing through identification when exchanging cryptocurrency for fiat money. Therefore, hackers use the so-called mixer, which mixes dirty money with a large amount of clean money, i.e. laundering it. The hacker pays a large commission for this and takes a big risk, because the mixer is either anonymous and you run the risk of losing your money, or is under the control of influential people who can give him up to the authorities. However, pseudonymity is bad not only for criminals, but also for generally law-abiding citizens. Here is a simple example. I'm transferring to my mother a small amount of Bitcoin. After that, she would be able to know how much money I have in general, most importantly, how much exactly I spent during my whole life, what I bought, how much roulette I played, as well as which politicians I anonymously supported. Likewise, if I repaid a debt to a friend for a glass of lemonade, then he would know everything about my financial condition. It's obvious this is nonsense. In this case, you can make your credit card's financial history openly available for everyone. If some individuals were to accept this, it would spell certain death for many companies. All their counterparties, purchases, sales, customers, the volume of accounts and everything else would become public. So the openness of finance is one of Bitcoin's serious shortcomings in the eyes of many people. Chasing the leader. In the United States, it is common to consider a currency as a commodity, while the absence of VAT does not cause major problems for either miners or cryptocurrency users. In 2016, US courts decided to recognize the cryptocurrency as a means of payment, with the use of which corresponding legal consequences appear aimed at legalizing the proceeds of crime. The state of New York has introduced a special license called the New York BitLicense, regulating certain types of activities, namely mining and exchange. Likewise, in Vermont, a bill is being drafted according to which smart contracts will become legally binding. In the European Union, the cryptocurrency is considered primarily as a means of payment without being taxed, which is welcomed by startup companies and in particular by mining companies. However, it is not entirely true to say that the US, EU, and China have become the leaders of the cryptocurrency market only at the expense of the active policy of their governments. Rather, this result was achieved through the efforts of large private capital and big investors. For a long time, the authorities of the countries mentioned above have tried to prohibit cryptocurrency, in particular Bitcoin, but it did not work out. As a result, they have changed their tactics, trying to establish control over Bitcoin and to make the cryptocurrency turnover as adjustable as possible. Russia follows the same path, but has lagged behind the leaders by a couple of years. This lag was formed due to the fact that they didn't take Bitcoin and cryptocurrency seriously for a long time, as well as the fact that there was no qualified center for analysis and decision-making on this issue. However, most likely, that situation hasn't changed today. At the same time, the issue of cryptocurrency should be considered in a comprehensive way, from the side of national security, return of state and financial sovereignty, as well as geopolitics. Only such an approach will allow us to make a correct, balanced, and conscious decision. Thus, the decision must be taken as soon as possible, because China, in my opinion, will continue to vigorously take the initiative concerning the cryptocurrency market. This will mostly be due to the fact that the main part of the factories for the production of mining equipment are located on the territory of China and the countries of Southeast Asia. For some people, it may be a revelation. Not miners, but producers and sellers of mining equipment receive a majority of the income from mining business. The prime cost of this metal equipment is 10 times lower than its selling price. This super profit is invested in the increase of production and mining capacities in China, as well as the purchase of Bitcoin, which leads to a further increase in its price. Here is an indicative detail. Chinese miners work on the most advanced and efficient equipment over the course of several months and only then begin to sell it to other countries. This approach allows them to constantly keep competitors at a respectful distance, increasing their influence in this market. It is impossible to prohibit cryptocurrency in any one country. This is as absurd as banning the internet or rain outside the window. That's why the central bank and regulators, despite their huge desire, are failing in their struggle with cryptocurrencies. To date, the list of countries where Bitcoin is banned includes Nepal, Bolivia, Colombia, Ecuador, and Bangladesh. I'm not sure that anyone wants to get on this list. Even if you prohibit the turnover of cryptocurrency, the targets set by the regulator will not be achieved anyway. Some of the market players will certainly switch to other assets, but the majority will not give up their favorite things and simply go into the shadows, consciously becoming violators of the law. In fact, people lobbying laws to ban cryptocurrency deliberately push people to commit crime, and nobody knows why. At least it will be very easy to catch such criminals in the future, as they can be easily manipulated. On the other hand, the legalization of cryptocurrencies means the state's surrender to a global speculative business. In fact, private money flows into the country. At the same time, I understand why many countries easily give up part of their state sovereignty associated with the issuance of their own banknotes. They just didn't have it in the first place. Let's create our own cryptocurrency. I think that in the current situation, compared with Bitcoin, countries need to create a truly decentralized cryptocurrency without binding it to the state. This cryptocurrency should not only technically surpass Bitcoin in terms of speed, cost of transactions, as well as bandwidth, but as it develops, it should become more decentralized than Bitcoin. By massively surpassing Bitcoin's features, such a new cryptocurrency will overtake the primary cryptocurrency and will become popular throughout the world. In addition, we need to draft a law not to prohibit cryptocurrency, but to regulate its market. It will become necessary to license crypto exchanges and exchangers through which the cryptocurrency is to be exchanged to fiat money. It is the creation of a favorable condition for the work of international exchanges and exchangers that will not only attract investment, but will also reduce the risks to crypto users with the exclusion of fraud. The requirement to verify and identify users of crypto exchanges and exchangers will help to solve the problems related to terrorism and money laundering. In addition, we can obligate crypto exchanges and exchangers not to be bound to Visa, but to national payment system, thus popularizing them. Such an integrated approach to resolving this problem will allow the country's financial systems to be under state control. Personally, I evaluate the prospects of Bitcoin as very vague for a variety of reasons. However, this doesn't mean that those who have already gotten involved in the struggle for it, as well as those who have managed to invest big money, according to macroeconomic measures, in this arms race must back down from the struggle for control of this cryptocurrency. Success in this field cannot be achieved by acting according to the established rules of the game. But if we concentrate our efforts on the production of our own mining equipment, then anything is possible. Big players aiming at succeeding in the battle for Bitcoin need to build national factories for the production of chips and video cards, rather than buying old things at an inflated price from China. It's important that in terms of productivity and cost, such equipment outperforms its advanced Chinese counterparts. The provision of industrial plants, for example nuclear power plants, and special electricity tariffs will lead to an increase in investment in these projects from around the world, offering the ability to attract the mining farms which have already procured such equipment. On the basis of these mining farms, it will be possible to create the world's largest mining pool. Only such an integrated approach will allow us to compete with other countries in the mining and control of Bitcoin. ICO boom. One of the areas of development in blockchain technology is the so-called ICO, Initial Coin Offering. ICO works on a principle similar to an IPO. Investors investing funds get a company's share. The main difference is that conducting an ICO, the investor does not receive real shares, but becomes the owner of cryptographic tokens, which are traded on crypto exchanges for various cryptocurrencies. Roughly speaking, tokens don't depend on shares or any other form of ownership. Calling things by their proper names, in 99% of cases, the ICO teams sell nothing to their investors, or rather the hope of making a profit. It's important to understand that in the majority of cases, people offering the ICO promise a ridiculous profit percentage to those who decide to invest in their project. In 2017, it was appropriate to talk about profitability in excess of Bitcoins or Ethereums. However, such a rate of return is unbelievable in the real world. Not even the most successful legally operating business can provide a 20-fold increase in investment. And even if they could, why would they then seek profit through an ICO investment? Any classical credit organization will loan much more money at an incommensurably smaller percentage for such a project. Therefore, the fact that almost all the ICOs started in 2017 have not lasted up until the new year is absolutely unsurprising. You should also note that during the ICO, the so-called bubble effect may appear because of the excessively high interest in this method of obtaining financial infusions into a business. The main risks are fraud and loss of investment capital due to the opacity of the cryptocurrency market. Nowadays, this is the main problem of any ICO, which limits the effective use of this tool. People believe that the risks can be reduced with the introduction of state regulation of the cryptocurrency market. In addition to government regulation, the risk in the ICO field can be affected by the entry of large market players with not only a reputation, but also physical assets in the form of finished goods and income, which are extremely important in the face of economic sanctions from the USA and the European Union. Nevertheless, ICO is a very effective tool for attracting investment into Russia. The most appropriate way is to attract funds into operating enterprises that require investments, in particular for expansion of production. Manifesto. Almost 10 years have passed since the appearance of the first cryptocurrency, which, according to the plan of the creator, aims at becoming a convenient and anonymous means of payment. It could replace money, but there are forces in the world for which this monetary unit is a threat to their established positions at the top of the global governance system. In order not to waste energy in combating this phenomenon, the power of which repeatedly exceeds the existing world financial system, the minds and attention of people who have understood the power of cryptocurrency have instead been deployed in the opposite direction. Cryptocurrency has evolved from a means of payment into an investment tool. It lost its power in the speculative struggle on the exchanges. The race of mining capacities has led to the fact that now, in order to pay for a cup of coffee worth $1 with Bitcoin, you need to pay about 25 cents to the miners to confirm this transaction. The high cost of transactions is a problem for absolutely all top cryptocurrencies. The greed of stock speculators and miners is the scourge of Bitcoin. So the world's elites were able to subdue something that cannot be defeated. To date, before it's too late, people have to correct the situation and consider cryptocurrencies as a convenient and anonymous means of payment, as well as a ready means to fully replace the existing monetary system. Change is possible. The PRISM's concept is this reversal. PRISM. PRISM is the development of the CWT social movement, as well as the result of the work of a very strong, if not to say the strongest, international group of programmers whose names I cannot disclose right now due to security concerns. PRISM does not have an issuing center and can be used as an absolutely transparent, using the blockchain, and decentralized means of payment. The advantages of PRISM compared to Bitcoin are obvious. PRISM's speed of transaction does not exceed 1 minute. Bandwidth is not limited, as well as the minimum commission amounts to 0.5% of the transfer amount, but not more than 10 PRISM, i.e. when transferring $1 million through the PRISM system from one place of the world to another, the fee will be charged in the amount of only $10. Due to the technical implementation of the concept of issuing new coins different from other cryptocurrencies, PRISM becomes even more decentralized during its development. You can check the open source at github.com/prismspace/prismcore. PRISM's mission is to carry out a smooth transition from the world financial system based on the US dollar to crypto economics, i.e. the future economy based on blockchain. PRISM uses both blockchain technology and the NXT core, which has been completely redesigned in the process of project development. As a result, a unique paramining mechanism was implemented, where the emission of new coins does not depend on the mining or forging process as it does in all other cryptocurrencies that use proof of work and proof of stake. In the PRISM system, the emission of new coins is carried out in an absolutely decentralized manner in the wallets of all users of the network at the same time. Thanks to this, as the network develops with the genesis of the wallet, new coins are allocated to an increasing number of addresses. Thus, over time, PRISM increasingly expands and becomes increasingly decentralized. The speed of creating new coins depends on two factors. In the paramining mechanism, elements of marketing based on the blockchain are used. Due to this, the network can develop itself, expanding and involving more users, similar to a social virus. PRISM will never become a centralized model like Bitcoin or POS currencies. The installation of nodes and the creation of blocks are currently available to every user on their personal computers. Therefore, this mechanism will not become complicated in the future. PRISM paramining is unique and has been realized for the first time. In the PRISM cryptocurrency, all the defects are completely eliminated, while all the advantages of other worlds' currencies are realized. Since its launch, February 17, 2017, the team has managed not only to prove the viability of the project in an aggressive environment, but also its prospects and long-term viability. An interesting fact about PRISM is that it was one of the only cryptocurrencies in the world that did not follow the downward price trend of Bitcoin in fiat currency. I'm pretty sure that PRISM will not only catch up with Bitcoin in terms of capitalization and the number of users, but it will also surpass it, since it surpasses all of its technical parameters, as first and foremost, the project was created as a convenient and modern international payment tool. We created PRISM because to date, no one has created any cryptocurrency which allows to print and distribute money without a centralized force, and which, as it develops, becomes even more decentralized, while also due to the low cost of transactions, making it possible to use as a full payment tool. To date, not many people are willing to pay 20 to 25 cents for a quick transaction through Bitcoin or Ethereum for a cup of coffee worth $1. Almost all existing cryptocurrencies are forks or tokens based on the Ethereum blockchain system. Prism is neither one nor the other because it was created in another programming language, Java, while Bitcoin and its forks are created using C++. Prism is infinitely far from the POW concept, but POS is not close to Prism either. The fact is that the legendary Satoshi Nakamoto understood the first part of the cryptocurrency revolution as meaning to be able to print money. However, he did not fully deal with the issue of the possibility of distributing this money, which, in fact, is the most important piece of the puzzle. This oversight has created a critical vulnerability in the Bitcoin ecosystem. Instead of spreading money around the world, the system has replaced central banks with a group of miners who have created chaos in the system, delaying necessary software improvements by years, such as SegWit, and threatening with meaningless hard forks to speculate and buy more coins for a low price. As a result, Bitcoin's initial decentralized model became more concentrated in the hands of miners and stock speculators each year. Thus, an absolutely new system has been designed on the basis of the Prism cryptocurrency that will once and for all change the world financial and economic environment. The secret is how to distribute money at the time of its creation and further transmission. It is necessary to select pairs of prime numbers in 99.9% of the existing cryptocurrencies in order to unlock a new coin, thanks to which a block is generated, for which the Genesis block gives you a coin as a reward. In Prism, everything is fundamentally different. The issue of coins does not depend on the generation of blocks in the blockchain. In fact, foragers are enthusiasts who support the network in an operational mode and do not generate new coins. They simply receive a fixed commission from the transactions that were recorded in the block they created. The generation of coins is made to all users simultaneously, which leads to an even greater decentralization. It's impossible to accumulate coins with a margin of 50% in one place. The more users join the system, the more the network is segmented, the more the need to generate new coins, distributing them to a larger number of addresses. To generate more coins, users are forced not only to keep coins, but also distribute them to their followers, popularizing the system and leading it to even greater decentralization. In fact, the generation of coins is made for storage, regardless of whether you create new blocks or not. Generation of coins is made on the available balance. To date, there is not any cryptocurrency in the world in which the function of generating new coins would be divided from the function of generating new units and maintaining the blockchain network. Prism is the only cryptocurrency for now in which the block and the generation of coins are different sides of the same coin. Only such an approach will subsequently preserve the original concept of a decentralized, open, and transparent financial instrument, controlled by a huge number of users. To date, Prism is indeed the only cryptocurrency in which the problem of 51% is solved. And we will tell you how. First, we implement pre-mining with small amounts for the largest possible number of participants. We don't need investors, but partners who can spread Prism in their country to as many users as possible. Thus, we solve the problem of maximum decentralization. We don't leave anything for ourselves because we don't want to be the Achilles heel of the system. Unlike Satoshi Nakamoto, we are living, breathing humans who have created an absolutely decentralized financial tool. Secondly, even if some moneybags will try to buy a large quantity of Prism, it will be very difficult to do, as Prism's price goes up as demand increases. Due to the limited number of Prism in circulation, as well as its uniqueness, people are unlikely to be willing to spend it. In turn, this can only lead to an even greater increase in the number of new participants and the scaling of the network. In any case, the most important thing is that there will be chains of participants over moneybags who try to buy Prism. The increase in personal balance will accelerate, above all, the speed of paramining, issuing new coins, of those who take over moneybags. Practically, this will allow moneybags to receive more income, but they will not be able to take control over the system, as its weight and influence will only decrease. Postface. The few who thereof something really learned, unwisely frank, with hearts that spurned concealing, and to the mob laid bare each thought and feeling, have evermore been crucified and burned. Goethe, Faust. On May 18th, 2017, in the United States, Jacques Fresco died when he was 102 years old. The death of this great man has become a loss for many millions of people who dreamed of a better world and aimed at changing it. Jacques Fresco is the author of the concept of the resource-oriented economy and the founder of the Venus Project. As many people said, Jacques Fresco was a contemporary of Albert Einstein in the full sense of the word, as he also devoted most of his life to solving the urgent problems of society and working on the creation of cities of the future. The concept of the resource-oriented economy of Jacques Fresco formed the basis of the CWT ideology as an alternative to the existing world economy created on capitalism and making a profit. Someone will say that this is not ideal, but certainly better than what we now see in society. The CWT movement will do everything possible to continue the work started by Jacques Fresco, less than a year after Jacques Fresco died. On March 26, 2018, another brilliant man, Sergei Mavrodi, has passed away too. He was one of the first to not only dare to openly talk about the injustice of the existing world financial system, but also struggled against it. With his financial pyramid, he demonstrated the principle of the world financial pyramid of bankers based on the US dollar. It showed ordinary people how the world's financial elites make money out of nothing. He brought up a huge number of young leaders in many countries who are engaged now in politics, business, or finance with one goal: to change the world and to give ordinary people financial freedom. He has gone, but his ideas live and continue to change our world. We are living in a very precarious time, a time of global changes and new opportunities for every citizen on our only planet. Global changes can be interesting and positive, but dangerous and unpredictable at the same time. There is no common understanding between people, and there is no common goals and direction toward a better world. Today, the people's thinking is locked onto their personal consumption and their plans to increase this consumption. The results never lead to an improvement of the quality of life for the person or the society in general. We live within a ruthless and bloody war, a war which is conducted between global corporations and supranational governing structures, and the victims are the entire human population. This is no longer a conspiracy theory. If you have observed and analyzed the nature of military conflicts for the last century alone, you would have realized that the basis of all these wars, cold and hot, cyber or drone, is related to money. The so-called currency wars and their impacts on the value of the domestic currency do not reflect the potential of the real material base and the true resources that belong to state and citizens. The irony here is that there will not be any real winners rising out from these currency wars. The collapse of this system will lead to a profound devaluation of all the resources and tools that could be otherwise used for our prosperity. Moreover, as a result of these wars, the question about the future of our existence within this system has become an urgent world conversation. On this basis, the greatest potential lies not in more investments in hydrocarbon production, gold mining, or expensive high technology and defense systems, but in the common interest and life-nurturing resources and tools for people. Investment in the development of our common interest in all the creative fields, and in a new, more sustainable education for our children. Over the years, many politicians, human rights defenders and social activists are trying to find the answer to one question: how do we achieve peace on earth? The answer has so obviously been in completely changing our financial system. What is the modern monetary system? First of all, its destiny was predetermined at the time of its creation. Like everything in this world, it went through the phase of birth, growth, and prosperity, and and now we are inevitably witnessing its death. This natural process is irreversible. We can't stop it, but only prolong the agony of its death throes, trying to make it live on, even if it's to our detriment. Do not waste your energy on trying to hoard and wait in some illusionary safe haven. It's not going to work. This storm will reach everyone. There is no insurance that will cover the damage this storm will bring. There is a way out of this situation: to create a new financial model. A model which will be transparent and understandable and fair to each and every person. To create a unit of value to account for what we do, attached to the real value of material products, and reflect the true value of the goods and services we transact. A new currency should be introduced that is fully decentralized and not bound to national control and interest. People who use this new currency should be responsible for its emission. Everyone should be able to release as much money as they can provide by their goods, services, or other efforts to develop the new settlement system. This is the only way we can take the control back from global corporations and governmental agencies. By the time the global financial system offers the world a new, independent, and effective operating tool, this system will have already gained its freedom from the government and big business, who would otherwise keep it subservient to global governance in the form of uncontrolled central banks. With this change, they will fail to influence people through a controlled media circus. Corporations will lose their profit incentives and opportunities, and what will be the end of an unjust financial system that creates money based on unsecured debt. Moving away from these currency wars and adopting equal control and transparency over the financial system, we will gradually reduce the risks of military conflict on the planet. This won't happen tomorrow, but if we don't do anything, then the world will continue passing through this dark tunnel into inevitable catastrophe. There's too much at stake in this pivotal time in human history. I urge you not to wait until someone comes and starts to change the world for you. It is time for us to unite and create a new financial system that will save and improve our lives. This book presents a new vision in the form of an ideology that brings people of various countries, cultures, religions, and beliefs together in one shared purpose: to become free from the domination of global financial corporations. From birth, we are told what to do. "You must" is the mantra we are told we should live by. But in fact, it's just other people's thoughts that force us to the life of their choosing. Taking their position of "I must," we choose a life for someone or something else, not for ourselves. My purpose can only occur when we cease to follow someone else's ideals and head towards our own. Only in this case we will discover our personal potential. This motto of "my purpose" has become the global aim for the leader of the international movement Change the World Together, or CWT, Alexei Muratov. My purpose is to change the world, which is ruled by the elite of the world financial empire. They are always ready to start wars, organize revolutions, and drive common people into slavery for the sake of their own greed and monopoly. However, Alexei is well aware that improving or implementing anything new without knowledge or experience is a hit-and-miss gamble. Alexei Muratov realized that he did not want to live like most people do. At a young age, he has worked as a leading engineer at a nuclear power station in Kursk, Russia, and was the leader of a youth movement. By the age of 25, he had become the youngest deputy chairman of the City Duma to the chairman of the Permanent Commission on Economic Policy. This was not unconnected. He had a dream to help the people of his city. Soon it came to him. One couldn't change people's lives in a city, region, or country for the better unless the state had sovereignty, unless it had full independence in its internal affairs and foreign policy. Unfortunately, most countries of the world do not have that sovereignty, so the desire to rid society of the negative external influences subsequently became the basis of the CWT movement's ideology. One cannot win if the rules are constantly being changed for the benefit of who is making the changes. The rules must be the same for all participants. Alexei Muratov tried to implement this idea by participating in Sergei Mavrody's infamous project MMM. Alexei was engaged in the creation of political parties outside Russia. It should be noted that this was his first experience with an association of people from different countries, different cultures and religions who desired to change the rules imposed on them. communism. However, when the Ukrainian legitimate government was overthrown in Ukraine with the help of the world's financial elite and the pro-Western puppets, Alexei considered it his duty to come to Donbas. He realized that the background to that conflict was not a national idea by the Ukrainian people, not a desire to enter the European Union, but a threat from international corporations to start the Third World War. This would prevent Russia from further development and stop it from becoming a new superpower. That spring, Alexei Muratov became an official representative of the Donetsk People's Republic after its proclamation in Russia. He became an active participant in the creation of a new ideology, which would unite the inhabitants of Donbas. As the head of the executive committee, he is engaged in the development of the public movement Donetsk Republic, the most widespread one in the Donetsk People's Republic. After that, he started working at the central office of the People's Council, Parliament of the DPR, and Alexei created its structure. Thus, the Ministry of Justice of the Russian Federation registered the social movement Change the World Together, CWT, on August 17, 2016. Alexei Muratov has become the chairman of the board of the CWT.